The original Sonic the Hedgehog was a major success, and pushed sales of the Sega Genesis faster than, well, take your pick. Sonic's popularity grew substantially, taking place as a big name in the glorious 16-bit 4th generation of video gaming. 1992 marks another strong year in that era. Mortal Kombat's gruesome violence forced ESRB into fruition, Wolfenstein 3D paved the way for the first-person shooter genre, and Alone in the Dark revolutionized the survival horror genre. Additionally, Nintendo's Pink Puffball Kirby made his debut in Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy, and Super Mario Kart selling a whopping 9 million copies intensified the competition between Nintendo and Sega. So, Sega's next logical move for the Blue Blur? Sequel. Development for the sequel took place in the Sega Technical Institute in the United States. Sega of Japan's stricter policies didn't sit well with lead programmer Yuji Naka, which resulted in him heading over to the US to help with the sequel. Level designer of Sonic 1, Hirokazu Yasuhara, left for STI as well as game planner. Character designer of the original, Naoto Oshima, stuck around Japan to direct an entirely new game, but we'll discuss that in the future. Yasushi Yamaguchi took the role as the character designer for the sequel. Originally, both Sega of Japan and Sega of America were meant to develop the sequel together, but due to disagreements, they were split into separate projects. The sequel being developed in the West is technically the very first American-made Sonic game, but it's going to take the world by storm.
Now, when you buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1, you'll get Sonic 2 absolutely free. Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains, embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too. This free Sonic 2 is a $54.99 value. You get 2 Sonics for the price of 1. Sonic 2 fits easily into any tackle box. Made from a space-age polymer plastic for years of family fun, and pets love it too. Buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1 and get Sonic 2 free.
Act now. Wiener Dog sweaters sold separately.
That fall came the fan favorite, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the powerhouse hit that introduced millions to the franchise, thanks to this game selling 6 million copies of the Sega Genesis. Sonic 2 is bigger, faster, and even more ambitious than the original. It's often regarded as one of the best, if not the best Sonic game. Does it hold up? Let's dive in and see. Sometime after Sonic defeated Dr. Eggman, the Hedgehog was growing bored in the now peaceful South Island. Out of impetuousness and curiosity to see the outside world, Sonic takes his personal biplane, the Tornado, and flies off. In a fateful move on a whim, Sonic lands on a new region, West Side Island. Oblivious to Sonic, West Side Island bears a tragic past. They say that a very long time ago, the people of this island used mysterious stones to advance their civilization, and they achieved great prosperity. However, when those people tried to use the stones in the wrong way, their prosperity vanished overnight. After that, they say that the gods sealed the stones away somewhere in the island. Wait a minute, there are gods in the world of Sonic? And I thought this franchise already had my attention. A few days after he started exploring the island, Sonic realizes that he's being followed by a young coy fox, Miles Prower, nicknamed Tails for his 2 tails being the reason why he suffered years of bullying. After hearing so much of Sonic's heroics on South Island, he decided to idolize his new role model and follow him wherever he goes. And right off the bat, Tails is a very likable, relatable character. He's a timid kid who looks up to the right people and aspires to do remarkable things. A lot of us have been there. Tails was conceived to attract a newer, younger audience. Usually when a kid is brought in to get more viewers, they end up whiny, immature, and downright intolerable. But Tails gets it right. He's kind, humble, and loyal to his friends. He doesn't try to copy or one-up Sonic, he's someone entirely new. Tails is one of the nicest and most loved characters in the franchise. This also says something about Sonic. He inspires people to fight back, all just by doing what he does. And he doesn't scold the young fox about how dangerous the adventure is. He just lets Tails tag along. It's irresponsible, yes, having a kid follow you into danger, but if someone's brave enough to take a stand, who's Sonic to hold them back? Moments later, they hear a shockwave from the nearby meadow, as well as a malicious, boastful laugh coming from Dr. Eggman. Eggman had followed Sonic to West Side Island, and he's in the process of 3 objectives: dominate the island's wildlife, cities, and ruins, search for the mysterious stones, and finally, use the badniks containing entrapped animals to build his ultimate weapon. Wasting no time, Sonic springs into action with his new sidekick accompanying him, and so, the adventure begins. The opening stage is the vibrant Emerald Hill Zone. While it resembles Green Hill Zone from the original, it strays far enough to call something of its own. The background is a wide open view of the ocean that reaches as far as the eye can see, telling us that we're on the edge of West Side Island. The checkerboard pattern on the walls and rocky hills has been toned down a little, and finally, this stage has a more tropical theme thanks to its coconut trees and coastal setting. According to the Sonic Jam strategy guide, Yuji Naka named this stage after the real-life Emerald Hill in San Francisco. This won't be the only thing Sonic will take from San Francisco, but we'll get to that. Expected features from the original return like springs, shuttle loops, and whatnot. But this stage introduces a new element, corkscrew loops that the player runs through with enough speed, giving us a cool angle of Sonic or Tails. Yeah, it's mostly for show, but it's usually accessible in the higher area of the stage, rewarding the player for getting through like a pro. It's not necessary, but it is enough to encourage the player to reach the higher places just to see that kick-ass moment. The later stages will reward the player in more extreme ways. In Sonic 1, there was a mix of both fast-paced and slower-paced stages. This game blends the two styles. If you slip up and tumble down to the lower half of the stage, you'll be trudging your way through underwater or inside a volcanic mountain. But if you take the higher route, you'll avoid those hazards below and finish the stage in record time. Sonic 2 is the first installment to dwell on alternate pathways. This way, the stages are both fast and slower paced. Advance topside like an expert, or crawl on the bottom like a beginner. A perfect balance. Sonic plays the same as last time. He's quick on his feet, curls to a ball to defeat badniks, uses speed to access secret areas, etc. Staying still for too long will have him looking at the player for frustration again, but this time he does the looking at the invisible watch thing, and then he lies down on the ground. He will not get up unless you make a move. Tails will also look at the player, but yawn. Not as rambunctious as Sonic's animation, but it fits Tails' calmer nature. Jumping off a spring will have him flipping and turning in the air to show more of a dynamic look. And most importantly, this game debuts the love staple ability, the spin dash. While crouching and repeatedly pressing the jump button, Sonic charges with speed like a car tire and blasts off. In the original game, if you need to get past a curved wall, you have to take a few steps back and then run forward. But here, you can be a foot away and use the spin dash to blaze over in no time. What's more is that if you jump right as you're executing a spin dash, you can go farther and reach higher areas. I love that. The spin dash will become a long-lasting technique that will be a core part of Sonic, like the charge beam is for Samus. Tails plays the same as Sonic. His signature ability to use his two tails to spin like helicopter blades, enabling him to fly, can't be used by the player in this game. Tails only flies as the NPC catches up to you. So this game is basically teasing you. The player won't be able to fly as Tails until Sonic 3, and that's disappointing. Tails' disfigurement that had him ridiculed for years turns out to be a blessing in disguise, but you can't utilize that. So in this game, both characters are on equal footing. For now. You have the option to play as Sonic with Tails, Sonic Solo, or Tails Solo. You hear that, Sonic 4 Episode 2? You can play as Tails Solo! This game is the first in the franchise to include multiplayer. A buddy can pick up the second controller and play as Tails, making you two an unstoppable force, especially since Tails can't die. Yeah, only when Sonic dies is game over, but Tails is immortal, so he can do all the dirty work. It's not canon, but it is a fun thing to exploit. If you're playing a Sonic with Tails, the CPU will copy everything you do, which you can use to your advantage in few boss fights. Mono and mono races are here as well. There are only 4 stages, but 3 of them have different music than in the single player. It's a nice little time waster. Not only has Sonic been upgraded, so have the badniks. Like before, they have that blend of colorful and threatening, with woodland critters trapped inside them to empower them against their will. Some come across as sister badniks to older ones, like Buzzer succeeding Buzz Bomber, or Masher taking after Chopper, and Gola continuing the Orbinaut line. A few notable badniks are remembered for different reasons. Thanks to the 1993 animated series, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, the drill-equipped Grounder was revamped into a bumbling henchman alongside Scratch, who I assume was taken after the chicken badnik Clucker. These two basically serve as the Bebop and Rocksteady duo of the show.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Ready? Tell me what I'm ready for.
Spring the trap.
I knew that.
The monkey badnik Coconuts was also featured in that show. I think this is what the older fans remember about these bots more so than in the game, and I can respect the show for making these standard enemies memorable. The badniks this time are more challenging. Some of them will anticipate Sonic's attacks. This is evident with Crawl's bumper shield and Flasher's intense heat that will hurt you if you recklessly attack it. The stages this time are set in a different pattern. Instead of 3 acts, it's usually 2. Act 1 ends off with a gold plate once again with Eggman's face before you cross it, and Sonic giving the V sign gesture after you run past it. But when you run past his Tails, his image will be shown. He doesn't show the V sign, but he is a shy kid, so that's expected of him. At the end of Act 2, Sonic and Tails duke it out with Eggman. In the first boss fight, the good doctor swoops in to run them over with his drill-equipped car. Alright, I've heard of Road Rage, but this is pushing it. After defeating Eggman, he flies off further into West Side Island. The Eggmobile goes through a few redesigns to give it a more fitting look in each of the stages. After the battle, Sonic and Tails free the entrapped animals in a capsule like in the original, and then venture throughout the rest of the island. As the sun sets, Sonic and Tails storm the murky industrial site, Chemical Plant Zone, an energy plant that, to my knowledge, wasn't built by Eggman. Industrial sites are commonplace after all. In the background, we see buildings like in a large city, telling us that West Side Island also has a civilization like ours. The yellow walkways throughout the stage can lead to different areas. If you want to take a separate pathway, shrink the stage and jump into the one opposite to what you used. The yellow walkways also enable him to run so fast he can go off screen. Chemical Plant Zone is the first stage to include dash panels, or boosters, whatever you want to call them. As soon as you touch one, you'll be bursting through lickety-split. It's a lot like those rubber boosters on Hot Wheels courses that will send your cars flying when they go through it. We'll be seeing variations of dash panels over the years. But the most fun you'll have here is entering through tubes that will shoot you to another area. As the name implies, chemicals will be your frequent threat. A blue substance will fire out of tubes to impede your progress. Eggman will launch the sludge at you in the boss fight. It can be annoying, but that's nothing compared to the nightmare-inducing pink liquid, Mega Mac. In the Western manuals, it's said to be poisonous, but it's basically like water. But unlike water, however, air bubbles do not appear in the stage. So you better haul ass out of there, or it's lights out. Regardless, Chemical Plant Zone is a high-stakes romp that's a blast to play through. The next day, the duo stumble across the submerged aquatic ruin zone. This fits the bill of whatever's left of West Side Island's ancient civilization. Wide-range sunken temple remains covered in moss and leaves. There's a sense of sorrow here. Below, it's a standard underwater stage with air bubbles to keep you alive. But up top, you can use the spin dash jump to reach the highest point of the ruins. Like in the old Indiana Jones movies, trap arrows can fire at you. This happens when you cross the Eggman-shaped carvings in the stone pillars after the maniacal scientist took the time to fine-tune the ancient ruins. Run-down stone pillars will collapse if you jump on them, playing the decayed temple motif. A few decrepit walls will appear for Grounder to attack you by surprise. Another hazard consists of wisps. No, these wisps. Were you honestly expecting cute little aliens to show up and overstay their welcome? Aquatic Ruin Zone is an overall quaint stage with its fair share of peacefulness and tragedy. That night, our heroes step into the thriving city of Casino Night Zone. The landscape in the background displays an endless array of casinos. Jeez, the residents of West Island must have serious gambling problems. Who cares, this place is fun. This stage introduces slot machines that you can insert yourself into to win rings, launch off from pinball flippers, take elevators, break through multicolored tables until they break, charge springs to shoot yourself through shuttle loops. It's hard not to like this place. There are also neon lit signs about Sonic and Tails, although they call him Miles. Sonic is seen as a world-famous hero, and Tails is getting attention too. These two are starting to earn everyone's respect, not only on West Side Island, but in the whole world. Sega also gets a neon sign here. Casino Night Zone is lively and a jolt of fun, setting the stone for casino-themed stages for years to come. The following day, Sonic and Tails advance to the peak of West Side Island, Hilltop Zone. Back in Emerald Hill Zone, you can see the mountainous range in the background, and I love foreshadowing like that. The mountains succeed clouds, giving you that grander sense of danger and adventure. The barely functioning gondolas hint us on the lost civilization as they look man-made and ancient. After they reach the end, they collapse. Other structures present are seesaws returning from Starlight Zone with the heated badnik instead of a mace ball. A nice little nugget here is when you burrow through the end of a shuttle loop. Simple, but effective. The most intense part of the stage is in Act 2, where you make your way out of the volcano as the lava rises, as long as you took the bottom path. Up top, the land rises. Hilltop Zone is a breathtaking stage that starts to raise the difficulty as you reach the halfway point. Deeper into the island, our lead duo break into the dark and frail Mystic Cave Zone. Caverns littered with fragile steps, spiked columns, vine switches, crushing vines, camping crawltrons, and lots of spikes. So the stage is trying to kill you. This is among the least speed-oriented stages, but like Marble Zone, it tests your reflexes. Oh, I should not ignore a certain part in Act 2 where you can fall into a pit of spikes with no escape. Once you're in there, you are dead. So watch your step. I dig the stage's theme music. I have no commentary for it, I just like it. Mystic Cave Zone is a risky and dangerous trip that will sharpen your senses more so than any other stage in this installment. And you're never gonna forget it. Outside of the caverns is Oil Ocean Zone, an oil refinery resting above a large pool of, well, oil. Somewhere a fat-rich Texan is drooling. This stage is set with fragile platforms, rocket-fueled lids, vertically shaped fans that will bring you safely above the oil pool, and checkerboard cannons that will send you to other cannons and finally drop you off further ahead. Cannons will be a reoccurring element in later installments. I was never a big fan of this place because way too much is being thrown at you. I hardly get a chance to breathe here. I'm sure old school fans have got this all figured out and they can beat it in 20 seconds without getting hit, but it's not for me. Regardless, Oil Ocean Zone is a challenging stage that does have its own menacing feel that plays up the oil is bad angle. Before the climax, special stages return. Getting there, however, is through a different method than last time. In Sonic 1, you had to clear a stage with at least 50 rings and hop into a giant ring. But here, when you reach a checkpoint with at least 50 rings, a portal will emerge above that you can jump into. The last batch of special stages was set in a rotating maze, but in Sonic 2, you're in an ongoing half-pipe with bright colors in the landscape, and most surprising of all, in a 3D perspective. That's right, this game gives us the first glimpse of Sonic in 3D. Yeah, you can't turn around or rotate the camera, but it's a start, and Sonic and Tails having CG models? Kick ass. The pseudo 3D helps put emphasis on the otherworldly and dreamlike presence of the special stages. The half-pipe pattern will be the most recurring special stage by far. The goal here is to steer the endlessly running Sonic and Tails to avoid bombs and collect enough rings to advance to the next round. After clearing all 3 rounds, you're awarded the Chaos Emerald. The mysterious stones of legend are the emeralds themselves. After a lost civilization abused them out of greed or violent intent, the unknown gods sealed them inside the island. Now, that begs the question, if the emeralds were sealed in West Island for thousands of years, how were we able to get them in South Island? And you know what? It's never explained. I know, it's a bonus for the player, but logically, how are they here? And I don't want to hear that cop out, it's just a game, don't think about it. No, you don't get us hooked and then expect us to drop all interest. We want to know how this universe works. How can Ryu and Ken use the Hadouken? How can you use the Force? By letting us in on it, you're fleshing this world out a little more. It's a nitpick, but I wouldn't mind a plausible reason. I do have a theory about this. Now keep in mind, this is only a theory. I am not calling it canon, just trying to piece things together. There could be 2 ways to get a Chaos Emerald. The old-fashioned way by just getting one, and a more supernatural way by clearing a special stage where an emerald is transported from some random area throughout the world to the palm of your hands. Let's say that an emerald is sitting in a jewelry store. Meanwhile, Sonic reaches the end of the special stage, and the emerald begins resonating, then teleports to Sonic. The gods buried the emeralds underneath at first, and left secret pathways for people to achieve them. It's never established where 6 of the emeralds went to by the end of the first game. They could have been scattered throughout the world until Sonic reclaims them, and then a 7th emerald. This game's the first to include all 7. Last time, we saw 6 emeralds restore nature. With at least 50 rings in Sonic's possession, we can see what all 7 can do. Yeah! Sonic uses the 7 Chaos Emeralds to transform into what's officially called Super Sonic. A play on words with supersonic speed to have Sonic go Super Saiyan, with his fur turning gold and his hair standing up. Yuji Naka said plenty of times that Dragon Ball Z was not an influence for this form. That may be, but it is a big coincidence, and fans can't help but treat it like it was an inspiration. So, the Emeralds can do that for anyone, right? Well, that depends. The Emeralds have the mystical ability to turn people's thoughts into power. All 7 Emeralds can make anyone's greatest desire a reality. The ancient inhabitants of West Side Island misused the gems for their own selfish gain. Sonic went Super Saiyan simply because he wanted to. And him potentially being a Dragon Ball Z fan makes us love this guy even more. We'd all do the same thing. I totally would. Super Sonic is faster, able to jump higher, and invincible. With exceptions. You can still drown, get crushed, can't escape from that spike pit in Mystic Cave Zone Act 2, and once you transform, your ring count will deplete until it hits 0, then Sonic reverts to his normal form. Tails unfortunately can't use the Emeralds to do the same. According to Sonic Wiki, a representative of Sega stated that Tails couldn't use the Chaos Emeralds due to him being too young. So it turns out that children are restricted from tapping into the Emerald's power. Sorry buddy, maybe next time. Regardless, Super Sonic is a bonus that's worth the struggle of the special stages, and one of the coolest returning features in future games. Alright, now let's kick Eggman's dictator ass. Within the largest city of West Side Island, Sonic and Tails made it to Eggman's massive base of operations, Metropolis Zone. Imagine Scrap Brain Zone on steroids, and a coat of green paint. Metropolis Zone features obstacles like steam-powered pistons, pools of lava, triangular bounce pads, spiked platforms, lightspeed tubes, and bronze coil tunnels that you can run through, and find it hard to keep your eyes off of. I'm sorry, they're just so Mode 7-ish. The most notable aspects are the bolts that you can turn by running in a certain direction, allowing you to ascend or descend. This has the potential to be the best stage in the entire game, if not for one flaw. Damn it! This stage has 3 of the most cringeworthy badniks in the wrong places. The crab-like Shellcracker sucker punches you. The star-shaped Asterons will self-destruct once noticing you and fire 5 projectiles in different directions. Pray they don't notice you when you're turning a bolt. And the absolute worst is the mantis-like Slicer. Imagine Scyther, but able to throw with sickle arms, and then come back like boomerangs. This is the badnik that will likely hit you the most. Hate this guy! Oh, but there's a plus side. You see, after he throws his arms, he'll be rendered immobile, giving you the chance to strike back. Well, well, well. Looks like someone couldn't quite cut it. What's wrong? Maybe you're losing your touch. Alright, I'll just be on my way. After having revenge! Metropolis Zone is the only stage to have 3 acts instead of 2, making this the largest stage in the game, as well as the last one to be split into acts, and the last one to take place on West Side Island ground level. An overwhelming excursion of machinery and danger with a ton of buzz. By the end, Sonic and Tails have finally liberated the island from Eggman's grip, prompting him to flee with the lead duo in pursuit. Our heroes take to the skies to chase after the evil doctor in the unconventional Sky Chase Zone. No shuttle loops, no boss battle, just a straightforward chase to Eggman's flagship as Tails pilots the tornado, and Sonic stands on the wings to defend the plane from the airborne badniks, such as the bird-like Valkyrie, the bomb-dropping Nebula, and the adorable Turtleoids. I'm sorry, it's a flying turtle giving a smaller turtle a piggyback ride. Now I feel bad for beating them. The relaxing music gives it that calm before the storm feel, despite it being a chase sequence. What truly sells the stage for me is the development between Sonic and Tails' friendship. Sonic trusts Tails enough to pilot his own plane, and Tails catches Sonic whenever he jumps out of bounds, as long as he isn't out of range. I have no problem believing that these two are best friends, and that helps give this game some soul and, well, humanity. We've come a long way since Sonic met that shy kid, but now it's time to finish this. Past the Armada, the two catch up to Eggman's flagship, Wing Fortress Zone. The airship fires a laser at the tornado, provoking Sonic to jump on board as Tails sticks with the malfunctioning plane. What happens to Tails is unknown to the player at this point. From here on, Sonic's on his own as he maneuvers around rocket-powered booster engines, bottomless pits, and trigger-happy chickens. The stage also bears Eggman's old logo higher up, showing Western players that Robotnik is called Eggman, the Land of the Rising Sun. Navigation can be tricky at first, but you'll get the hang of it. The most creative part is when Sonic's hanging on to a detachable plate and follows the path of rings as the wind pushes him. It's like a stunt in an action movie. As you make it to the end, Sonic pays Eggman back for blasting Tails. After decimating the death trap, Eggman retreats to his rocket, leaving Sonic in the flying battleship. But Tails survived the attack earlier and arrives in the nick of time with a rocket engine attached to the tornado. This is the first sign of Tails' intelligence, which later games will expand on. With the duo giving chase, Sonic hops onto Eggman's getaway rocket as they ascend to outer space while Sonic manages to survive the deadly vacuum for about 10 seconds. Eat your heart out, Batman. Sonic was breathing in space a decade before you did it. At last, they enter Eggman's new station, the Death Egg. A Death Star knockoff that resembles Eggman himself. Even though it serves no purpose, he put the giant mustache on it. Alright, even though this guy plots to enslave the world, you gotta admire how much of a Star Wars fan he is. While it doesn't do much in this installment, and the exterior is only visible in the level select screen via cheat code, this is just scratching the surface, as it'll soon make an impact on the fans as Eggman's magnum opus. A few steps in, Eggman unleashes his final badnik, a metallic doppelganger that resembles Sonic. According to the Japanese manual, he's called Mecha Sonic, but will eventually get another badnik with the same name. Some fans call him Silver Sonic to avoid confusion, and that's what I always called him. Silver Sonic is a little slower, but devastatingly stronger copy of the hero, who has similar abilities like the spin jump and the newer spin dash. He also has a buzzsaw on his head to ensure that you don't jump too far, and he can fire spiked projectiles like Asteron. With 0 rings in the Death Egg, it can be a tough as nails boss fight if you haven't got his pattern down. While it appears clunky, it's more a foreshadowing of what's to come soon. With Silver Sonic destroyed, Sonic chases after Eggman, but there are 2 things he wasn't counting on. 1, Eggman can outrun the fastest thing alive, somehow, and 2, he has a backup plan. He enters a 2-story tall mech that resembles himself. A walking doomsday machine, simply known as the Death Egg Robot. Interesting how the Death Egg contains mechanical reflections of both the hero and villain. Eggman's space station showcases his maniacal vision for the world as he hovers over it, symbolizing his egotistical nature and extreme goal. With both arms equipped with spikes to shield his weak spot, you need a lot of patience to wait and attack at the precise moment when he takes a step back and when he lands after trying to crush you via his jetpack. He'll shoot Eggman-shaped bombs whenever you're behind him. Continuing from Silver Sonic, there are 0 rings in your possession, making this, without a doubt, the most challenging boss fight of the classic era, as well as the most popular. But despite the odds, Sonic trashes the mech and evacuates the Death Egg as it explodes. Everyone at West Side Island watches the explosion, including Tails. Worried that Sonic hadn't made it out, he boards the tornado to save his friend. If you hadn't got all the Chaos Emeralds, Tails catches Sonic as he falls back into the planet. If you have got all the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic goes super and flies on his own, and Tails shows up just in case. Even though he didn't exactly need Tails' help, that's just what friends do. And this is what makes Tails so likable. Unlike the original that had good and bad results at the end, the endings of Sonic 2 are just slightly alternative. There's no stinger with Eggman possessing the emeralds or anything, it's whether or not Sonic will go super and what color the birds will be. That's it. But despite that, the ending is majestic and rewarding. And the song Sweet Dream by Dreams Come True makes it even more satisfying. Unfortunately, I can't play it because of copyright infringement. Masato Nakamura returns to compose the soundtrack for the sequel, and in the Japanese version, he gets keyboardist Takehiro Nishikawa and singer Miwa Yoshida to create a full-blown song for the ending, complete with lyrics. Yes, Sweet Dreams is the very first vocal song in a Sonic game. Vocal songs will be a loved tradition throughout the franchise, and I highly recommend checking them out. Western versions of the game, however, keep the theme instrumental. I mean, come on, I want to hear Miwa Yoshida's angelic voice. With West Side Island saved, Sonic and Tails fly into the distance as the game ends. All in all, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a fantastic sequel. It updates everything from the original and takes it to a whole new level. More stages, more refined gameplay, an expansion on the lore, Super Sonic, and the introduction of Tails. It steps Sonic up from a cool character to an icon. It's more engaging than the original and leaves you satisfied as well as wanting more, which is what all good sequels should do. Are there flaws? Well, a few. After Sky Chase Zone, co-op is dropped until the ending, even though it was a big selling point. As phenomenal as Supersonic is, it can be a double-edged sword since Tails gets the shaft here. The player should have been able to fly as Tails, that way the two characters are balanced. And like I said before, there should have been more contrast in the endings. Despite it all, Sonic 2 is a thrilling adventure that you gotta see for yourself. Some might say that it's overrated and people praise it way too much. Well, that's what happens when you talk about a game that you love the hell out of. Things are mega popular for a reason. And keep in mind, this is the game that introduced millions of kids to Sonic. Speaking of which, this is the Sonic game I recommend for newcomers. The original can give you the gist of the franchise, sure, but the sequel does that and then some. Do I think it's the best Sonic game? No. Do I think it's the best of the classic era? Sorry guys, no. It is a top-notch game, don't get me wrong. I just think the next two installments are superior. But if you say this is the be-all and end-all Sonic game, more power to you. Regardless, I love playing Sonic 2. And if you haven't given it a shot, you're missing out. This was undoubtedly a journey to remember, but Sonic's greatest single excursion awaits him.
I'm a Super Saiyan!